do you need a paycheck or do you want a life? Do you want to make something bigger than yourself, or do you want to just collect a paycheck? And I didn't want to just collect a paycheck because I could go work anywhere and do that. But if I'm going to take time away from my kids and have to juggle everything, I want it to be something that will mean something at the end of the day.
You're listening to the Profit by Design podcast, episode 38. You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire.
Profit designers, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about how work supports life and not the other way around. And you're going to get to hear from two A-player team members in some A-player small businesses. And these small businesses, the owners are dedicated to creating businesses that support life and not have people's lives support the business. I think we've all had the experience or can relate to the experience of working extraordinarily hard and feeling like we're giving everything to support a business or to support a company and wondering, what's in this for me? And on today's episode, we're going to hear from two team members talking about how they're working in businesses that are about supporting good quality of life. And in turn, because of that, they are giving their best to these businesses. And Mike and I on the Profit by Design podcast are all about asking that big question: what has your business done for you lately? We get to hear some pretty interesting insights from these two about what the business has done for them and how they in turn are giving back so much to the business. It strikes me that when I'm out there talking about the 4-week vacation, sometimes people hear that on a very superficial level, like, oh yeah, I want to take a 4-week vacation. And I just want to share with you today that the 4-week vacation is about how does our business support our life and our team members' lives, and how do we make our business more and more sustainable. So if that's important to you, to be building a business that's sustainable, that supports a good quality of life, I invite you to start thinking about how do you get your business on a trajectory so that you can take a 4-week vacation as the business owner. And also, how do you start setting that business up so that no one person in the business feels like they're having to sacrifice their quality of life for the business? These are things that we talk about at the Breakthroughs on the Bayou 4-week vacation retreat. And you can get a jump start in working on that for yourself by downloading our 4-week vacation jumpstart guide. And you can get that and learn about the retreat at 4weekvacation.com. Profit designers, today's episode is pretty special. We have two A-player team members from two very different businesses that are going to share with us their experience in these business from an A-player perspective, and also their own learning and growth that they've been through in these businesses. So first up, we have Maegan Raymond. She's the office manager of American Landscape and Lawn Science, a family-owned lawn care company located in the quiet corner of Connecticut. Maegan received her associate's degree in accounting in 2006 and continued her employment as a bookkeeper at a nonprofit organization until 2013, when she decided that a career change was in order. With 6 years of experience, Maegan has helped her teammates grow the company from 800 to over 2,500 customers, in addition to doubling the number of employees. Her duties include overseeing 3 office staff, financial reporting, and general support for the entire company. Aside from her professional life, Maegan loves spending time with her wonderful husband, Rick, and 3-year-old daughter, Ellison. And we also have Britney Shore with us. Britney is with Core Accounting, and she graduated from Texas A&M University in 2016 with a BBA in accounting. Shortly after, her husband, 3 kids, and 2 dogs moved to Castle Rock, Colorado, where they spend most of their free time outdoors and taking day trips to the mountains. So with that, let's dive in. So Britney, Maegan, it is exciting to have you both here with us. You two are A players, and you're both working in 2 different businesses that are great places to work. And so I'm so excited to have you here because we get to have an A player inside look into a great place to work, but also I'm really eager to get your perspectives on how these places are different from where you've worked previously. And as being A players yourselves, I mean, you're such go-getters. What are you looking for in a place to work? What's important to you? I think for the business owners who listen to this, but also the team members who listen to our podcast, your insights are going to be really, really enlightening. So maybe if both of you could start out, and I'm going to call on Britney first, if you could share a little bit about where you're working and how you came to work there.
I am working right now at Core Accounting Services, and we do a lot more than accounting, but that's what brought me to them. Was I have a degree in accounting and I wasn't sure where I was going to use it, and I was referred to Christine by a friend that I met when I moved to Castle Rock. And I was like, might as well try it. And I wasn't sure if it would work or sure if I was ready to have a job yet because my kids were still really young. And after I talked to her the first time, I was like, okay, sold. And I just ended up going through the whole interview process and then meeting with her eventually and starting working. I just felt it wasn't about accounting. It was about me. And it was about me having opportunities that will lead me to a future that I wanted. That really stood out to me because she wasn't really just looking for an accountant, because there were a lot of people that applied for the same position that were way more qualified than I was. And when I found out that I got the job, I was like scared and ecstatic. So I ended up having no expectation of like what the job would be like or what working on a virtual team would look like. And so I think that helped me be grateful for like everything that happened after that, because at first it felt like it was a lot of personal questions and a lot of building trust that I was not used to. And it helped me like learn how to allow myself to have a personal life and also a business life. And sometimes they mix, and that's okay. And we try to build the rest of our team that way, where we aren't trying to make someone pretend like they don't have a personal life and they don't have kids and they don't have, craziness outside of their work life. And that's what really, I think, helped me get into like this feeling where I have empowerment, and I can feel great about my job and I can feel great about my personal life too. And it's not necessarily separate.
Yeah. Wow. So you said that you were sold, like as soon as, because it wasn't just about being an accountant, and it was the personal development side of it that really stood out to you. So how did you even learn about the opportunity with Core and Christine?
It's like a crazy story, but thanks to Mike and that Intuition podcast, I'm like all about things happen for a reason now. So it's just craziness. But I was at Walmart in a blizzard, and a woman came up to my husband because she runs a magazine and she was trying to sell him. We were in his work truck, and she was trying to sell him an advertising space in the magazine. And she just started talking to us, and we kept in touch with her and ended up using her advertising. But she's like this huge network of all these people and all these connections. And she just sent me one day, she was like, I know you got a degree in accounting and you weren't sure what you want to do with it. So I just saw this post on Nextdoor in her neighborhood. And she was like, you should reach out to her and just see where it goes. And I was almost not going to do it because it seemed very intimidating because I hadn't really had any accounting experience outside of school. And I wasn't sure how it would even play out, and I was terrified. So I eventually just emailed her a resume and I was like, what's the worst that could happen? She just says no. So then when I reached out to her and I started talking to her, I was like, instantly, I just felt like I was meant to do that.
So Mike, do you want to weigh in here from the intuition perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that it is really meaningful. And I think sometimes, things do happen for a reason, for sure. And they kind of fall out of the sky. One of the things that struck me was the word opportunity that you used when you first started kind of going into your story. So for you, the opportunity side, how do you define that? So I know what it means to me because I feel like I landed in a huge opportunity that I'm actually involved in right now. But for you, what's the difference between a job and an opportunity?
I think the whole difference starts with that, do you need a paycheck or do you want a life? And do you want to make something bigger than yourself or do you want to just collect a paycheck? And I didn't want to just collect a paycheck because I could go work anywhere and do that. But if I'm going to take time away from my kids and have to juggle everything, I want it to be something that will mean something at the end of the day. And so when I started with her, she was so just enthusiastic and we just connected instantly. And I felt like she cared about me as a person and not just as an applicant. And it wasn't just like a paper to her. And so then when I talked to her, I just all these light bulbs went off, where this could take me and what I can use my skills for that would actually help people.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah. And the whole piece about the network and how you learned about this opportunity is fascinating to me because I know from Christine, it came through a Nextdoor connection, but I didn't know the backside of it from you as to how you even learned about it through Nextdoor. And so it was just this other person that you got connected to who then connected you to Christine. And so I think from a recruiting standpoint, when we're looking to find A players, it's really understanding how to network to make that happen. So that's really cool. Let's shift here a minute and let's hear from Maegan because Maegan is also an A player and she's working at American Landscape and Lawn Science. And Maegan, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came into this role and what you're doing now. And, because you've been in the role for, I think, 6 years, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So before working with American Landscape and Lawn Science, I was at a nonprofit organization. I had started at when I turned 16. My mother had worked there and they were looking for somebody to work in the kitchen and I needed a job. So I started working there and every so often a new position would open up. It was a retirement home for elderly women. My mom had been working there for about 20 years at that point. So I just kind of worked my way from position to position and then to receptionist once I started going to college for accounting, actually, and the bookkeeper role opened up there. So I was able to take that and still go to classes while I was going to school. I was able to kind of work around the receptionist and the bookkeeping position there. So once I got to that position, there was really no other place to go in that organization other than being the administrator, which I had I wanted nothing to do with that because the opportunity was just not there and I didn't want to. So I worked there for 14 years. And at that point, I was just kind of stagnant in my position. And my friend Chris, who is actually the lawn care manager here, had said, hey, our boss, Steve, he needs an assistant. So would you want to come over to do that? And I was like, I'm not really sure if that's what I really want to do. I don't know where that would take me either because there was no accounting in that. So I kind of said no. And about a year went by and he came to me again and he goes, well, the office manager position is opening up. Do you want to come and interview for that? And I said, you know what? I'm going to talk to my mom because I was still working with her at that point. And, she was not the administrator, but one of the higher up directors. And I said, you know what? I have this opportunity to work for a company, make more money, use more of my knowledge in accounting as the office manager and bookkeeper there. And she said, do it. So I interviewed with Steve and Chris and they hired me. And I really haven't looked back since. I loved my job there. I loved working at the home that I was working at. But the job here now is exactly what I needed at that point. And I agree with Britney. Everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe that in this position.
Yeah. And so there's another similarity here in what Britney shared. You found out about this position because of networking. So Chris, and I know Chris, he's an A player too. I can vouch for that. So A players hang together. They know each other. He told you about the job and you had to hear about the opportunity twice. And the first time you heard about it, it wasn't quite big enough. Like the role wasn't quite big enough for where you wanted to be, it sounds like. And then the second opportunity, it was a bigger role and you saw more growth potential.
Yes. Well, I know that the first time he talked to me about it, they had just celebrated getting 750 customers. It was right before I was getting married and they had a party for it and they were so excited. And I could tell that the growth of the company was, going somewhere. So I felt like, oh, well, that's kind of cool, and then when he told me about the office manager position, I was going to be doing more of the financial part of it, which is where I really wanted to be. I said, let's do it. Let's come on. And it's been way more than just financial. That is for sure. So I've learned so much. I never thought I could be so excited about lawn care, but everybody here is so passionate about what they do. You just can't help but to, hang on to that and be passionate about it as well.
So I enjoy lawn care too, but that's for personal reasons. Why are you so passionate about lawn care?
I think Steve and Chris, Steve is the owner of the company, they get so excited when an issue or a problem arises that they can fix or they can look at different avenues to explore that you literally cannot help but get excited about it too. So, and there's always problems to solve or always problems to look into and to learn more. So definitely learning. You never stop learning in this field.
Yeah. So let's dig in with that right there with both of you. You both have done some tremendous learning. You're in pretty rapidly growing companies. So I want to just ask each of you, and maybe Britney, if you want to start us out, to share what the growth has been like since you've been with the company, and then also what your growth has been like since you've been with the company.
I think when I started, Christine was just kind of figuring out where she wanted to eventually have the business grow into. And then when we started, at first, a lot of people say things that, we're going to end up doing this and we're going to do this and you're going to get this opportunity and all of that. But it happened when she said it was going to happen. And this, every time she made a goal, we all worked on it. We all made it happen. And that was the difference, I think, because we thought about creating a niche, and I just talked to Erin on Facebook about it,
and that's Erin Longmoon for our listeners. Yes. With Zephyr Recruiting.
And she's actually helping us out with recruiting, but she ended up thinking the same thing that we went through, because at first we were trying to pick an industry and it really wasn't about industry for us. It was more about the structure and the culture and the owner's mindset really is the important part for us. And then the value that they see in our services. So we ended up kind of making that a niche and growing that part. And we really, we just get referrals from, Pumpkin Planning, Profit First, people at Tap the Potential, just everybody that we know that's good people just spreads out their little feelers and they bring us people all the time. And a lot of the time we have the benefit of we're lucky enough where we can kind of screen them see if they're a good fit for us, and then move forward. And I think that helps a lot because that gives everybody on the team like a feeling of we aren't settling for just anybody that walks in the door, and we are worth what they, like they have to see the worth in us for us to bust our butts to get their stuff done. And
so that part motivates you as a team member, that you're not going to be dealing with just somebody that is you guys are bringing in because you need some money or whatever, that you're working with people who really appreciate what you have to offer. And that keeps you motivated to keep delivering at the level that you deliver.
Definitely. It's very it's contagious. So I'm not a super confident person in general, but when we are conditioned in our team meetings and our one-on-ones to our value and our company's value, then it's hard not to be confident about what we offer and what we the respect that we should be given and that kind of thing. So it's not, I don't know, it's like a service, but it's something that's not tangible usually. So it's kind of like they have to appreciate us, and that makes us appreciate each other, and that makes us appreciate them. And there's just a lot of mutual respect, even though we're growing super rapidly.
Yeah. So the confidence building is baked into the systems and the structure of how you guys do things.
Definitely.
And it ties, Mike, what's really intriguing to me here is how this ties right back to pumpkin planning, with us being very intentional about the clientele that we bring into our businesses.
Yep, absolutely. One other thought I had, what I'm hearing from both of you is just the sense of ownership. What do you think drives that sense of ownership? And, obviously you're both A players, and you do, have these certain qualities, right, and core values. But if you can both jump into quickly, what drives that or fuels that ownership and what you're bringing to the table? So Maegan, if maybe we start with you.
Sure. So I believe everybody here actually enjoys failing, and we enjoy owning our actions, which is part of our immutable laws. So we hold ourselves accountable, and then we kind of move on from there. So we use that as a stepping stone. Any of our failures or any time that we make a mistake, everybody here is owning up to them, and we're just using them as a learning experience.
That's awesome. And do you really feel like the ownership is it's thickened throughout the entire company?
Yeah, I think it trickles down.
Yep.
I really do. I think it starts with Steve, and, he's the first person to say that was my fault. And yep. Everybody sees that, and they're not afraid to go to him or to go to their manager or to another employee and say, hey, I screwed up. Let's move on from here. Let's change the way we were doing things. Let's fix it. Let's be, we'll know next time. We'll be privy to the information that, we need to change. So I feel no one is scared to be upset or get, to make a mistake and go to their superior and say, hey, everybody's kind of, they know we're human. We're going to make mistakes, but we just need to move on from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's obviously important, right? Is to have an open communication, and to have the feeling like everyone can grow from mistakes or slight setbacks. And if everybody is communicating and talking about it, then they're swept under the rug, and there's always forward momentum. And Steve's an awesome guy. I had the pleasure of spending some time with him last year, and I know how passionate he is, and his values and how genuine he is is awesome. So it must be a pleasure to be on his team.
It is. He has a lot of very good insight into things, and he's constantly talking to all of the employees and, getting feedback from them. And one of the biggest things that I've learned from him is slow is fast. So everybody here kind of tries to take that into account. And I said it out loud to one of the newer employees here the other day, not even thinking it. And he started chuckling in his office. And I said, did I just say that out loud to somebody? I always say it in my head.
You channeled your inner Steve.
I channeled my inner Steve, and it's hilarious. So now the new employee has been saying it. I know I need to slow down. Slow is fast. So,
yeah.
That's great. How about you, Britney?
I think the biggest piece for us is that even if you walk into a situation and you've never dealt with whatever is happening in there, we want your feedback, and we want any opinion that you have or anything you see that could be more efficient. We let everyone have a say. So we'll have we basically had 3 team members in the last couple months come on, and the biggest thing I told them was, don't be afraid. Nobody's going to be mad at you if you have a suggestion and you don't know the whole picture. We would appreciate any suggestion you have, any thoughts you have, and we're not going to take it oh, that's my baby and you just stepped on it. I made this process by myself and that kind of thing.
Yep. And what about for you personally? What the immense amount of drive that you have, and obviously, you're taking the position with, almost as an ownership, right? Like a partnership ownership type of stance on that. What drives that for you? I mean, why are you not like every other employee?
I think a lot of it starts with that A player mentality that Dr. Sabrina always talks about, because it's true. There's this thing in me that a lot of people have where I don't feel good about bad work. There's no way for me to forget that I did bad work or not give my best. And then it kind of just is a seed, and it just keeps, reminding me oh, you didn't finish this, or, there's just accountability in me that I can't let other people down. But there are a lot of the growth that I had within CORE was taking that and realizing that it's, not everybody has that, and it's awesome and you can use it to your advantage, and letting me have ownership of things that are within the company, things that we, client services, that kind of stuff, where I feel that's my output and I can be proud of that. And there's feedback for it and, acknowledgement, that kind of thing, where I feel I'm heard and I have a purpose in the business. And then there's appreciation for whatever I put out.
So that is really interesting to me, that part of your learning has been to own that you're different as an A player, that you have this inner drive to do good work because not doing good work bothers you. So you're owning that that's a difference for you and then embracing it as a strength. And that's being encouraged at CORE.
Yes, very much so. And it's also, I think for me, I don't think that everybody in our team necessarily has to have this feeling too, but I really love connecting with people. And I really love feeling like they are feeling good about themselves and the work that they put out. So I try to give all of this that Christine gave me and push it out to them from Christine's side, from my side, from, just the feeling that I have when I go to work and I, give my 100%, I want them to feel that too.
So that's that mentoring piece. Both of you have really touched on that. I was teasing with Maegan that she's channeling her inner Steve, but that's where good mentoring is happening. Christine has mentored you, Britney, and you have the drive and the desire to share that and spread that through the team.
I think it started with the connection that we have. I have an exorbitant amount of respect for her, but she is also my friend. And I feel there's no boundary where she's not my friend, she's my boss, and she's not my boss, she's my friend. There's always this little fluid energy where I can be myself with her and I can trust her, and she will give me feedback that I need to fix or move on or, whatever I'm needing. She gives me pep talks on a regular basis and just guidance that I then feel I need to give this to everybody else. Everybody needs to feel this.
So you guys don't know this, but Mike and I just did a recording with Erin Longmoon for another episode that we're doing, Erin of Zephyr Recruiting. And we were talking about how small business is very different than corporate, that we have personal relationships with our team members. You can't help but have a personal connection in addition to the business relationship that you have. And what you're describing is that you guys are navigating this in a very healthy way. From your perspective, what are some keys to just making that work?
I think I was afraid at first before we built that trust between us, it was hard for me to picture being able to be friends, and have that work relationship too. And so I kind of was not hesitant, but like a little scared of opening up completely and being myself and, letting my personal life and my work life come together and that kind of stuff. But once we had that trust built between us and like just had that relationship with each other, it feels natural and it feels like that's important too. So I try to make the other team members feel, because 2 out of 3 are from like corporate jobs before. And we do our agendas and I'm like, do not feel like everything on this agenda has to be about business, because sometimes your problems might start in your personal life and then it will come into the business. So if you have something you're struggling with in your personal life, chances are we've all been it, like we've all done it too. So we can help you with that. And if you're willing to open up to us, we can try to help you through whatever is bothering you. And so they weren't used to that.
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen in the corporate world. So I imagine it does take a little bit of kind of breaking that down for people. Maegan, I'm curious, as Britney's talking about trust, what role do you see trust playing at American Landscape and Lawn Science?
I agree with Britney. I think our company cultures are pretty similar. I know just yesterday I went to one of my managers with something that I was going through personally, and I felt like I wasn't being judged and I got really good feedback from them. So I feel like everybody here has a sense of openness and honesty with each other, because we know that, like Britney said, you're going to bring it into work. And if you can't work through that right then and there and kind of move on, you're not going to be able to be that A player in your position that day. So I think that everybody here has, yes, they have their professional role with everybody and they know when to wear that hat, but they also know that no one here is going to judge them with anything that they may have going on personally in their life. All here for each other. It's a big family. I know that it started out as a family business and there are people who are related here, but everybody here, I think, kind of, feels like each other as either a brother, a sister, an uncle, a father figure. So everybody's, it's one big happy family. There's dysfunction in it and, there's issues with it, but everybody comes together in the end and, we all have the utmost respect for each other.
Okay. So you heard it here first on the Profit by Design podcast. There can be dysfunction in a business. Trust can exist and it can be healthy. So there's
the only way to describe it.
Like, we're not striving for perfection. Like, we're not all going to stand around and hug each other and sing Kumbaya at work every day. There's going to be problems and we're going to be screwed up and we're going to work through it. Am I hearing that from what you're describing with the level of trust?
That's exactly it. Because we do want to do our best, but we know that it's not going to be that way every single day.
Yeah. And I think what you said in there is the lack of judgment is what underlies that trust in the midst of there's some things that go wrong and we mess up. When you know that you're not going to be judged and you're going to be accepted as human and that you're doing your best, it makes it easier to work through that stuff.
It's actually a really good segue from what you were just talking about, because when I was listening to both of you talk earlier on, and it was, the opportunity and all these positive things, I wrote down in my notes, how do A players deal with frustration? So, there are employees out there that have a sense of entitlement. And when they get frustrated, whether it be employer-employee frustration, something within their relationship or a client frustration or something, they tend to fuel negativity with that. And then it's, I'm coming to this job, whatever, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. A players, though, possess a skill that allows the frustration, obviously, like Sabrina said, there are problems in any business and there's, things that need to be worked through just as they are in every relationship and life in general. But I think what what makes A players unique is they have a skill that turns that frustration around to something that's, a positive change, or they communicate it, or they do something. So can both of you maybe just think about that and just, give our listeners like a little tidbit on, how you might deal with frustration. And I would say, don't be afraid to even just, like a frustration that maybe you personally have had within the business, like this makes me really frustrated, but you know what? This is how I'm going to get around it. And I'm going to keep on my A player track and be positive and move things along.
So I will jump in on this because over the last year, being involved with Tap Potential and doing our people map assessments and figuring out everybody's personality types, we've also started doing executive team meetings between the 4 managers in the office and the owner. So every week we sit down and we kind of go over those frustrations. So whereas before people were kind of just being frustrated and not letting it out and just kind of going behind each other's backs and talking about it, now we have that open communication. We can talk about it in the meetings. So it still might get a little awkward and, just uncomfortable in the meetings, but at least we're talking about it. So we're able to get that issue out on the table every single week and work through it. And then everybody holds everybody accountable for those things in the following meeting. So it's really just the open communication and being able to talk about things with the people that they need to be talked to. It's really just, instead of just going behind and just, kind of just pecking at each other, we're able to open it up and be involved with everybody,
Great. That's great proactive approach. That's really good.
I think ours is crazy because we are all women, and you would think that a bunch of women working together would be like just a gossip party and like everybody's mad at each other one minute and not the next. We don't feed that drama. So there's times when I'll be frustrated with something and I will go to Christine, and if it's something that she can fix, I'm looking for that coaching conversation. If it's something that she can't, I'm going to just start off by saying, I just need to vent about this and give you, let you know what's happening. And then she's there to listen. And we brought back our one-on-one. So everybody in our team has a one-on-one with their superior or whoever on the org chart would be higher than them is really how we tried to structure it. But there's only me and Christine who have finished the coach approach and everything like that. So there's just 2 of us for now, but we were trying to make it so that people felt like they could come to us. So there's not that possibility for people just sitting there stewing about what makes them mad or what they don't like about somebody, because we are definitely imperfect, but we aren't expecting perfection from everyone else. So there's this communication, we try to build this trust with everybody where they can come to us. You can pick a person, it doesn't have to be in the whole team meeting. You tell everyone your frustrations, but come to one of us and tell us what's bothering you, because if we know, then we can help with it or try to work through it with you. But if we don't know, how are we supposed to? We don't work in an office together. We aren't always on video chat. So there's no way for us to really know.
Yeah. So communication, because you guys are a virtual team. So communication and open communication and being direct is critical. So you both you're in these high growth businesses. Maegan, you didn't get a chance to tell us how much American Landscape and Lawn Science has grown in the last year, but it's considerable. So I want you to jump in and share that. But I want to hear from both of you about how you see yourselves as having grown in this last year, because I've had the privilege of being a part of both of your growth, and it's phenomenal what I've seen, but I want to hear your perspective. So Maegan, maybe if you start out and share the growth of the company and where that's taken you in your own growth.
Absolutely. So since I started, it was, like I said, when the year before I started, they had celebrated their 750 customers, and now we're up to 2,500 as of today. So last year we acquired a company in an area that we were not in before. The owners of that company had retired, so we acquired another 1,800 new customers. So we doubled in size within, that amount of time. So we acquired them in June, and we doubled in size there. We brought on 3 of their employees from the other company, which they fit perfectly into our company culture. So it was pretty easy transition with that. But then we needed to add more team members. So we had another girl come into the office with us, and she was on customer service. So she's still answering phones. She's doing awesome. And yeah, we doubled in size, and now we have double the amount of employees than when I first started as well.
So what has that meant for you in your role? How have you grown?
Before, it was me doing everything along with a part-time person who was here 3 hours a day. She was just filing and doing some other stuff like that. But now I am managing all 3 of the girls in the office, and more of a financial role, and I'm more of a, with Steve, we do our financial meetings, and, we're trying to do more with goal sharing and things like that throughout the company. So I'm becoming more HR, a little bit less financial, which is fine because we have a new bookkeeper now that I'm managing, but it's been really great. And with the personal growth, just the open communication and going through the leadership boot camp and the coach approach, learning, coaching conversations and asking better questions. I feel like I've learned so much about myself over this last year than I have in my 36 years of living.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
It's truly incredible. I feel more confident than I ever have. So it's pretty awesome.
So Mike suggested to me that I start offering a program like Leadership Boot Camp and Coach Approach. And when he suggested it, I was hesitant because I thought to myself, how much learning can we really pack into 6 weeks? and what, transformation could really happen in the course of 6 weeks. But both of you have been in both of these programs, and you've totally embraced the teaching. And Mike, a funny side note, in Coach Approach, we had a 2-week break between meetings because the retreat was happening. And I thought, well, I'm going to challenge these guys and see who really steps up here. And I laid down the challenge that anybody who does all the exercises in one of the books that we were reading, it's the Change Your Questions, Change Your Life book. If you do all the exercises in there, I have a special surprise for you. And I really thought nobody would take me up on this. But guess who did? Both of these two. That's how I know they're A players. There's no doubt.
That's great.
So Maegan, and I want to hear Britney too. Maegan, when Steve came to you and said, I have this program, Leadership Boot Camp, that I think you ought to look at, what was your thought about it? Was it a natural, did you say, oh yeah, I want to do that? Or did you have questions or hesitations?
I had no hesitations because I knew the growth of the company, and I knew where I was headed slightly, that I was going to be moving up in my role. And I thought, if he's asking me to do this, there has got to be something to it. So I was like, yes, let me do it. Let me learn more. Let me learn how to do better managing and better leading. So I was all for it. And then when Coach Approach came around, I was like, yes, sign me up for that. And now, my next one coming up in May, yes, let me do that too. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I think you're both doing Leadership Mastermind in May. So yeah. Britney, how about for you? When Christine presented you with Leadership Boot Camp, what were your initial thoughts?
It kind of caught me off guard because I had only worked with her for a couple months maybe. And when she told me about it, I was like, that's going to help me way more personally than with work, that's amazing. And I was so not, used to that or ready for, somebody to be like mentoring, like that personal care that she had. But I was ready to do it. Like I really wanted to do it. It was just caught me off guard a little bit because I wasn't sure how that looks and like if I would be able to apply everything and like what I would need to learn there. And then when I did it, it was just mind blowing because I felt like everything in the class, it wasn't like you were concocting new ideas that no one's ever said before, but I never internalized them. And then that class made me internalize things that like my mom has told me my whole life, like Christine told me before the class, that kind of thing where I knew and like I had heard it before, but I never took ownership of like incorporating that into my life. And then once I was in the class, there was a ton of stuff that, it really did blow my mind, but a lot of it was like, this is where you're going to actually use it. Like you need to put it in your life. And it really changed my life because I really think that you start in your personal life, like all of the things that I learned in leadership, but then especially coach approach, because I have a 10-year-old who's exactly like me and we butt heads bad. And then my husband is the complete opposite of me. So we always are on different pages. And the night of the first coach approach class, I was literally using it on them.
Okay. So let's break this down a little bit for our profit designers and tell us, what did you use that was so helpful? Because I know it's going to help somebody who's listening. Somebody needs to hear this.
I really think the biggest part was realizing that not everybody thinks like you. And I am very type A personality and like, I want things to be done my way. And so I overload and overcommit to everything. And then my husband is like often, just doing whatever. And he's like taking risks and doing all of these things. And I felt like he didn't understand me and I didn't understand him. But what in reality, I think it was an issue with me not trying to see that there's other ways of thinking. Like there's other people who can be just as productive, but they don't think in the same process as you. And the questions really helped us. I made myself do it. And at first I was like, this is going to be so awkward. And I'm going to be like, they're going to just look at me weird, which they kind of did. But it got us into a conversation that we've never had before. And we've been together like 10 years. So it was insane to me that I had never taken that time to learn how to communicate properly with people that aren't like me. And that helped me a lot.
Wow. So I know you're talking about the tremendous impact on your personal life and your relationship with your husband and your daughter. But just think about all the times at work, we have people that we deal with who see things differently than us and handle things differently.
And it really helped me practice it in like a safe space where I could be in my home and practicing it with people that I knew, they weren't going to leave me because I asked them questions and they weren't going to be that put off. But then when I practiced it and like really told myself that this can work and you can use this in real life, then I started using it, like spreading it out further. And I think that another giant realization I had was that I assume everything. And I assume I know everything about everybody else's thinking. And I assume I know, not that I know everything about the world because I internalize that I don't know everything about the world, but I know everything about what you think of me, what they think of me, all of that. That is how I always have felt. And it wasn't until I started with all the classes and like the John Bates stuff, I realized that you can't make those assumptions. You're just hurting yourself and everybody around you when you assume things about, because we work with contractors. They're going to be like, they don't text an email. So it's like 2 words. And I'm like, why is this guy mad at me?
Mike, does this sound familiar? Mike's famous for his 2-word text. So as I imagine when you started talking about assumptions and how you assume all the time, I imagine our profit designers are out there just listening and nodding along going, yeah, that's me. Because we all do it. Everyone, that's our human nature. We're guilty of just assuming, and we fill in the blanks with all this story that's in our head, and it's not true.
And that in the internal questions from, I think it was the coaching habit, where that's what I do now without really making myself, is as soon as I feel something, I'm like, what did I just assume? Because Christine kept pushing it at me too before I took the class. And I was like, that's just her personality. She just does that, And then when I read the book and I was like really owning it, it makes everything like light up. It just shines flashlights everywhere. And you're like, I mean, they're not mad. He just doesn't know how to text. Like, that's fine. He's not mad at me. Why am I defensive?
Yeah, it's
like that.
Yeah, he's just concise with his text.
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything else. So, Maegan, I want to hear from you. What has been your learning from Leadership Bootcamp and Coach Approach? So a couple of nuggets that have really impacted you.
I've slowed down so much in my talking, and again, like Britney said, assuming. So when we're discussing something, I'm listening. My brain isn't going to that, okay, how can we fix this? How can we do this? It's, what is the better question? I probably ask myself that 50 to 100 times a day now. So I'm actively listening to people instead of just jumping in with what I think is the best, or what I think should happen, or what I think they want me to say is the best thing. I'm actually listening to people, and I didn't realize that I wasn't listening to people. I was hearing them, but I wasn't listening to them. So that has been the most impactful part of everything. I have much more meaningful conversations with my husband. I have much more meaningful conversations with my mom, my dad, my sister, everybody at work, because I'm just slowing down. I'm letting them talk. I'm letting them say their piece. And then I go from there. I don't interrupt. I still do a little bit. It's just my nature, but I try really, really hard to hear them and to ingest and digest what they're saying to me first before I just jump in with what I think should be said.
Wow. That's powerful. So I might put you guys, both of you ladies, on the spot a little bit with this question, but we have a lot of business owners who listen to this, and you both have different work experiences. Would you be willing to share what you see about where you're working that's different from previous jobs, and like maybe some nuggets that these business owners could take away in terms of how to really stand out and get A players on their team? Because I know they're sitting here listening thinking, I wish I had Britney and Maegan on my team. So what could you share with them that would help them find some folks like you? Or just be attractive to A players?
I think investing in them is probably the most important, like personally and professionally, because as soon as I started, I was like enrolled in that leadership boot camp, and I was just like, my mind was blown because she was giving me these opportunities that the price tag looked huge to me where I just started. And I was like, she's giving me this opportunity where that's going to help me in my personal life and probably my business life. But, she doesn't have a guarantee, and there's no and she had some pretty bad employee PTSD. So it was a risk for her to take. But once we had that connection, she felt like she could trust me. I felt like I could trust her, and she invested in me. And that's what made a huge difference, I think.
Maegan, how about for you?
I think that Steve learns little tidbits about all of his employees in conversations that he has with them. And I think that has been very impactful for everybody. For me, something that I'll share, and I don't know if he's going to be okay with this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Last year, I had a vacation planned and I hurt my ankle pretty severely and I had to cancel it because we couldn't go on vacation. And we had a lot of medical bills for that, and it was very hard. So this year we decided we were going to go on vacation with my parents. And one day, out of the blue, I get a card, and I opened it when I got home, and there was a card with beautiful writing in it saying how I deserve my vacation and that he gave me a bonus to help me pay for the hotel. And it was just, I will never forget that moment. It was absolutely incredible for him to do that for me, and just investing in your employees and learning what is truly important to them. Because besides having my daughter, I have not taken more than 2 or 3 days off in a row here. And this is a whole week that I'm not going to be here. And I don't know, he knew that I needed that. He knew that that was super important to me, and he helped me out. And it's just investing in your employees, whether it be listening to what they need or whatever you can do for them, and they will return it tenfold to you. It doesn't always have to be monetarily either. It was just the fact that he listened and he understood.
Yeah. Britney, what were you going to say?
Christine did something that I didn't remember, like particularly until she was talking about the hotel stuff, but there was a time when we were like really trying to crunch down and get stuff finished. And she knows that I hate making dinner, and I'm always like stressed about what I'm going to do for dinner. And I was working really late, not really late, but for me to pick right before I had to pick up my kids, I was like trying to get stuff done, and I didn't have time to really do anything else. And she ended up just ordering me Domino's, and she had it delivered to my house. And I was like blown away. It wasn't even like, I mean, there are certain things that are super expensive and like really an investment, but that just took her maybe like 15 minutes. And she was like, I'm sending you pizza so you don't have to worry about dinner. Thank you so much for helping. And like, it just made me like explode with appreciation and gratitude. And just, I felt like it was so much more than her just saying, thank you so much. She was like, she knew that that was hard for me. She knew what would, happen after I had put in that time. And she just took the time to be like, I'm going to make it better for you.
Mike, what are you thinking as you listen to these two?
So I do have a piece of advice for some of the business owners that may be listening that might be either a little bit overwhelmed right now, or maybe they have the PTSD and they're like, I'm not doing any of that stuff, or I did it before and I'm never doing it again. One of the things that I would totally suggest, and what first point is, takes a certain type of business owner, an entrepreneur, to understand some of the things that you guys have been talking about. And it's a business owner or entrepreneur, manager, whatever it is, that has also made some changes, right? And realized a deeper, more advanced level of entrepreneurialism, because you do have to be vulnerable. You do have to be a certain way to be able to have these programs work and invest without feeling like, it's just money thrown down the toilet. So it takes a special person and or a person who's on the track to have a better mindset as an entrepreneur and want to give back to the employees, and understanding that, involving employees in these programs, even if maybe they're not ready, it still makes sense to put your A players through these types of programs, because they're going to help you grow, and they're going to help you maybe get through that bottleneck and push to another level. I hope that makes sense. I mean, like, I have so many thoughts going around, because I'm like, I have all these things that I wish I did differently that I didn't do, but I also know that how my life was transformed, both personally and business wise, when I started working with Sabrina. And it was that mindset shift and those tools, right? Like, change your questions, change your life, to learn to judge your path, all of these things, which taught me how to be a better communicator, better listener, be more vulnerable, listen to, intuition, and do all these things. And I wouldn't have been able to get there without taking those steps. So I just blah, 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 just talked a lot. But, definitely if you're a business owner, you're frustrated, you want to feel these great things and you want to have great employees like, Britney and Maegan on your team, take a step in a direction. Take a step, start working on yourself, work on your business, work on those employees, give back to them, and everything's going to change for you dramatically. So that's it.
Mike, as you're talking, one of the dots that's connecting in my head is when you came to me and you said, I need a program for my team members because I'm learning and growing and I don't know how to help them because I'm in the midst of this myself. And that's kind of how Leadership Bootcamp was born. As Britney and Maegan were talking, I was really aware of how their tremendous growth that they've done in this last year is just reinforcing the growth of the business owners and the entire team. Like it's creating this cycle of growth that once the ball is in motion, it's not stoppable anymore. And it's kind of this energy that's going in these businesses that Britney and Maegan are contributing to. And what I'm really excited about for both of you, Britney and Maegan, is to see in the next year, as you start mentoring and sharing more of your learning with team members, what comes of that and the momentum from that. So there's been a lot of vulnerability here on today's episode. And Britney, I want to let you take us out of here because you're a Brené Brown fan. And I want to let you just have the floor to speak a little bit about confident vulnerability and maybe some words of wisdom to take us out.
I think the biggest thing that I learned from all of her TED Talks and everything I've listened to of her is a lot about perfectionism, because I felt this perfectionist. I felt like that was a safe thing for me to say about myself, because it's not too scary and I can be perfect and everybody will think I'm perfect and that's great. And I made myself miserable for a lot of years trying to be perfect to other people. And when I started this whole growth process, it started to come into my mind, like letting go of that. But it wasn't until I listened to Brené Brown where I was kind of like, that's where it starts, is you can be good at things and there's no perfection required. Like that's not a goal. And another thing that really stood out to me was Sean Acher, I think is how you say his last name, his happiness TED Talk. I will literally, if you walk into my house, I'm showing you that TED Talk. It's a problem, and people don't come around me too often because I just pulled out a TED Talk every time they do. But I sent it to all the girls, and I send it to my parents, and I send it to everybody because it's so powerful to think of your life like that, because for so long that's how I felt, where you're moving the goalpost. Every time you're about to be successful, you move it. So there's never happiness in that. And you can't have your happiness be dependent on what you think success is. And the fact that he points out you have like a happiness advantage, and you're more productive, you're a better human being when you're happy, and you can do everything better. And that's what really changed things for me, I think, was learning that perfectionism, nobody thinks I'm perfect, and that doesn't make me look better to say that I am a perfectionist. And letting go of that piece, and then realizing that my happiness was always hinging on something that didn't exist. And then being able to kind of let go of it, like therapy, and just take on a whole new perspective.
Well, we will link that TED Talk in the show notes because I think there's some people who need to hear this, and I can't wait to go watch it myself. So thank you both, Maegan and Britney, for being here with us today and for what you've shared. Some very powerful insights. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.